Some of the deepest truths about life didn't come from philosophers, they came from cartoons. Yeah, the same shows we watched with cereal in hand were quietly teaching us about love, loss, and courage. And here's the wildest part, a lot of us missed it. Because as kids, we laughed at the silly faces, the slapstick humor, and the crazy adventures. But buried inside those moments were lessons that can hit harder as an adult than anything else you've heard in a motivational speech. Let's start with one of the most famous animated films of all time. The Lion King. It's a story most of us grew up with, but it's also one of the most spiritually loaded cartoons Disney ever made. There's that unforgettable scene when Simba, lost and broken, sees his father Mufasa in the sky. Mufasa doesn't lecture him, he doesn't shame him, he just says, "Remember who you are." That line sounds simple, but it's profound, because in life, we all lose our way. We let fear, guilt, or outside voices drown out who we really are. Sometimes we need that reminder that your worth doesn't come from your failures, it comes from your identity. You are more than the mistakes you made, you're more than the setbacks you've faced. Disney wrapped a universal truth inside a scene with a talking lion, but if you listen closely, it's wisdom that applies to every one of us. Now, if we're talking about cartoons that hid ancient wisdom inside Saturday morning TV, we've got to talk about Avatar, The Last Airbender, and specifically, Uncle Iroh. Iroh is the definition of a cartoon mentor who says things so wise you almost want to pause the show and write them down. For example, after the death of his son, Iroh tells Zuko, "Perfection and power are overrated. I think you are very wise to choose happiness and love." This isn't just a piece of advice meant for kids. It's something much deeper, something that speaks directly to what it means to be an adult. As we grow older, life starts to revolve around goals and responsibilities. We chase after success, money, recognition, and social approval, thinking those things will finally make us feel complete. But in doing so, many of us lose sight of what truly matters. Uncle Iroh's message cuts through that illusion. He reminds us that real happiness isn't hidden in achievements or power. It's right in front of us, in the small, often overlooked parts of life. It's in the warmth of friendship, the act of showing kindness, and the calm that comes from inner peace. These are the things that actually sustain us when life gets hard. Iroh's wisdom is a gentle reminder that fulfillment doesn't come from climbing higher. It comes from looking inward and appreciating what's already here. And then there's that haunting moment in the Tales of Ba Sing Se episode. Iroh is seen alone, grieving for his son, singing Leaves from the Vine. It's raw, it's painful, it's an animated show reminding us grief is real, loss is real, and it's okay to mourn. A children's show, yes, a cartoon handled grief more honestly than many adult dramas. Okay, let's lighten it up for a second, because not all cartoon wisdom is heavy. Sometimes it's playful. And no one represents this better than SpongeBob. There's that iconic episode where SpongeBob builds a cardboard box and says with pure sincerity, imagination. He treats it as the most powerful tool in the world. And honestly, he's right. As adults, we forget the importance of imagination. We think it's just for kids, but imagination is behind every invention, every story, every new idea that shaped the world. SpongeBob may be goofy, but his childlike ability to dream and create is something most of us secretly need to relearn. The wisdom here is simple. Never outgrow your imagination, because the moment you do, you stop creating, you stop dreaming, you stop living with wonder. Let's move into darker territory. Batman, the animated series. This show wasn't just for kids, it was art, and the lesson Batman constantly thought was about fear. Batman isn't fearless. In fact, his whole story is built on fear. He saw his parents murdered in front of him as a child. He was terrified, but here's the thing. He used that fear, he turned it into his greatest weapon. The wisdom here, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward despite fear. Batman doesn't inspire us because he's superhuman. He's inspiring because he's human, but he refuses to let fear control him. That's something a lot of us need to hear. Fear will never disappear. The only question is, will you let it cage you or will you turn it into fuel? Let's throw it back to the classics, Looney Tunes. At first glance, it's just slapstick chaos, anvils falling, explosions, Wile E. Coyote chasing the Roadrunner and failing every single time. But think about it, Wile E. Coyote never quits. No matter how many times he blows himself up, he's back with a new plan. The wisdom here is persistence. Success is built on failure after failure. It's kind of hilarious that one of the most important lessons about grit and perseverance comes from a cartoon coyote blowing himself up with Acme products, but the truth is there. Failure is part of the process. If you're failing, it means you're trying. Fast forward to Pixar's Inside Out. That movie is basically an emotional psychology textbook in cartoon form. But the most important lesson, sadness is not the enemy. Most of us try to avoid sadness. We push it down, hide it, distract ourselves. But the movie shows us that sadness is essential. It's how we heal. It's how we connect. Remember that moment when Joy finally realizes that sadness is what helps Riley's parents comfort her? That's life-changing wisdom. This is Pixar saying, don't run from your sadness. Don't treat it like a weakness. Sometimes sadness is the bridge to love, healing, and growth. We can't skip Steven Universe, a show that's basically one long sermon about empathy, acceptance, and love. One of the most powerful lines comes from Garnet, who says, "Love at its core is a fusion. It's the strongest thing in the universe." That's not just a sweet line, that's philosophy. It's the idea that real love blends people, ideas, and even broken parts of ourselves into something stronger. Steven Universe is a cartoon, yes, but it gave a whole generation permission to be themselves, to love who they love, and to find strength and compassion. BoJack Horseman isn't just another animated comedy, it's one of those rare shows that looks you straight in the eye and tells you uncomfortable truths. On the surface, it's about a washed-up TV star who happens to be a talking horse, living in a Hollywood filled with animal people and endless absurdity. But underneath all that humor and weirdness, the show digs deep into what it means to feel lost, empty, or stuck in patterns you can't seem to escape. That line, "It gets easier. Every day it gets a little easier, but you gotta do it every day. That's the hard part," is one of the most powerful moments in the entire series. It comes from a character who's simply jogging, sharing a bit of quiet, grounded wisdom with BoJack. What he's really saying is healing, self-improvement, or even just surviving the day-to-day grind doesn't happen overnight. Change isn't a dramatic cinematic moment. It's a slow process that requires daily effort. It's brutally honest because it captures how real life works. When you're struggling with depression, addiction, or bad habits, there's no instant fix, no one speech or revelation that makes everything better. You just have to keep showing up, even on the days you don't want to. Each small step makes things slightly easier, but consistency is what actually moves you forward. That scene sticks with people because it strips away all the Hollywood glamour and gives us something true. BoJack, who's been trapped in cycles of self-destruction and regret, hears it and realizes that change isn't about grand gestures. It's about the quiet, daily decision to try again. And that's why BoJack Horseman stands out. It manages to turn a simple moment, in a cartoon no less, into a mirror that reflects our own struggles with being human. That's not flashy wisdom. It's not a motivational poster. It's the truth about building habits, healing, and trying to get better. It's ugly, but it's real. And sometimes cartoons need to tell us the stuff no one else will say. What do all these examples show us? Those cartoons aren't just kids stuff, they're modern myth-making. They take the biggest truths of life, identity, fear, love, grief, imagination, and disguise them in bright colors and talking animals so that kids can watch, but adults can feel it in their bones. Cartoon wisdom sneaks past our defenses, because sometimes it's easier to accept a lesson from a goofy sponge, a wise old dragon uncle, or a grieving lion than it is to face it head-on in real life. So the next time someone laughs off cartoons as just for kids, remember this. Those animated characters might be saying something you need to hear. Whether it's Mufasa reminding you to remember who you are, Iroh telling you to choose happiness over power, or SpongeBob urging you to keep your imagination alive, these aren't just quotes. They're survival tools. They're truths wrapped in laughter, music, and color. And if you really think about it, maybe the people behind these cartoons knew exactly what they were doing. They knew the best way to tell us something important wasn't through a lecture, but through a story that would stay with us for the rest of our lives. So here's my challenge to you. Go back and rewatch some of your favorite childhood cartoons. Listen closely, look deeper. You might find that the wisdom you've been searching for was there all along, hidden in plain sight. What do you think about cartoon wisdom? Please share your thoughts in the comments section, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our amazing content. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.